Do you constantly overthink about the man you're talking to or in a relationship with? Isn't it so frustrating to peep one small thing that he does and it sends you down a vicious spiral that you can't pull yourself out of? Well, what if I told you I could share with you a strategy that would prevent you from overthinking and spiraling? If you want to learn what that strategy is, just join me on today's show where we'll be discussing how to stop overthinking so men fall in love with you. That way you can stop feeling like you're going crazy and ruining your relationships because of your emotional triggers. Our first point is going to be facts over feelings. Now, what do I mean by facts over feelings? See, here's something very important that I want you to understand. Everything that happens to you in your life, there is a reality, meaning what's actually happening, and there's things that exist outside of your reality, right? So inside of your reality, there are facts. What are facts? Facts are things that are actually happening because you can point to the action taken that means it actually happened. But here's the really confusing part about reality and about facts. See, on the outside of your facts here, right, outside of your reality, there are feelings. Feelings can actually skew how you feel about facts, right? And you can start feeling like the way that you feel is so real and so true that it makes it so that what you thought was a fact or what may or may not be a fact is actually a fact because you feel like it's a fact. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that, right? Let's say this is your fact here that's existing inside your reality. This guy that you're dating did not text you back for an entire 2 hours. Now, this is the thing. See, this is the fact here, but this fact here doesn't necessarily mean what you might feel like it means. So for example, you might experience this and say, oh my gosh, this guy, he hasn't messaged me for a whole 2 hours. He's probably on a date with another girl. He's probably sitting down there looking into her eyes, or she's over at his place. His phone is on Do Not Disturb. It's face down, and he's sleeping with her right now as we speak, which is why he's not answering my texts and why he hasn't answered my calls and why he's gone ghost for the past 2 hours. See, that isn't facts. Those are feelings. But see, when the feelings become so prevalent and so strong and so intense, they actually permeate, right? What you feel like is actually true. But here's the thing that you have to recognize. Just because you feel like something might be true, it doesn't necessarily mean it exists factually in reality. Now, why is this an important distinction to understand as it relates to your relationships and it relates to men? See, you can make the mistake of feeling very intensely about something and accusing a man of doing something that he hasn't necessarily done. But the problem is, once you start accusing him of doing things that he hasn't actually done, or facts that haven't actually transpired, you come across in a very unattractive version of yourself. See, we want you to embody very unbothered energy. We want you to be in a state where the only time you react or take action on things is when you see them actually happening, not just because your mind is going particular places and it's spiraling out of control. What you want to understand about feelings versus facts that are happening in reality is that your feelings are actually, I don't have any space to write it here, but your feelings are a compilation of all of your different experiences, okay? Your feelings equal your experiences, the things that you've experienced in life, the things that you've experienced in your relationships, the traumas that you've had as a child when you were young, right? All of these things that happen in the process of you growing as a human being and evolving as a human being, this is what can permeate your feelings at a particular time, or the triggers at a particular time, which we're going to discuss triggers in a little bit. And you have to understand that just because something makes you feel a particular way, that doesn't mean that this fact is necessarily what you think it is or what you think it means, right? And in this example, the feeling that this guy might be cheating on me because he hasn't answered my messages in 2 hours isn't necessarily true. It's just a feeling. Now, your feeling is valid because it probably comes from a place of the traumas that you've experienced in your past relationships or your past talking stages. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to allow those traumas to transfer themselves into all of your new relationships, into all of your new talking stages, that you end up scaring away a lot of guys simply because you're overthinking. And our number 2 point is going to be about the spiral. This is the thing about a spiral. Now, we're obviously not talking about a physical spiral. We're talking about an emotional spiral. In a spiral, what will happen is you'll start off here at a trigger point. something is going to trigger you. Something that he does to you, something that he says to you, some sort of slick action that you peep. It could even be as simple as a liked picture. In this case, let's use the example of the fact that he doesn't message you for the last 2 hours. And this triggers your fight or flight response because of the experiences you've had before about being cheated on. See, this is the important thing I want you to understand about the spiral. This is kind of like the entry point. Once you enter here, you're gonna go round and around and around like this. And every time you get a little bit deeper here, each point, right, of depth is gonna make the process of being with this guy just a little bit harder to escape. What do I mean by that? See, when you start off with your initial trigger, you're gonna start thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, what is he doing? What is he saying? Why is he saying that? Why is he not messaging me back? What could he be doing at this time? But the problem is, this spiral, right, when you let it fester and you don't have a plan in place on how to work with it, on how to channel your energy, which we're going to talk about all of that in a little bit, as you get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the spiral, you'll begin to self-sabotage more and more and more and more. And this is the main point I want you to understand about the spiral. See, the spiral in itself is not even the main issue. The issue, the biggest issue with the spiral is that when you begin spiraling, you'll begin taking actions that will actually hurt your relationships because you won't allow yourself space to think and space to give the appropriate response to the way that you're feeling. And when you're not in control of this and you don't have a plan in place, you'll go deeper and deeper and deeper into the spiral. And every time you go deeper and deeper into the spiral, you'll start taking more and more actions based on how you feel because of the way that you've been triggered. So what we want to do, if we want to kind of work on this properly and we want to help you see results, we need to figure out, how do we battle this area right here? We've got to really focus in on getting really keen on acknowledging this area right here at the beginning, acknowledging what would trigger you. That way we can really focus on mediating the issue, on not suppressing your feelings, but understanding how to channel them and deal with them at this early stage. Once you start going and this snowball and things get rolling, it becomes very, very difficult to control the emotion and very, very difficult to manage the emotions now, because now your emotions are controlling you rather than you controlling your emotions. So when we're talking about the spiral and we're talking about how to prevent you from overthinking, we're building a strategy specifically to address this part of the spiral, the initial trigger, in understanding the trigger and why it's a trigger for you, but then also understanding that you need to jump into action immediately once we start going with this trigger, okay? We don't want any of this to end up leading to self-sabotaging. So in this case, when you have a situation where you don't get no text, and this no text lasts for 2 hours in the example that I gave before, see, this can lead to many different things. This can lead to an accusation. So the reason I'm saying all of these things is because, see, these responses to the way that you have been triggered could actually lead to the ending of your relationship with a guy that's great for you and that you're great for. But the problem is, see, when you don't understand how to manage your overthinking, you won't understand how those triggers will force you to self-sabotage in the moment. Because emotions are kind of like a river, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, right? We want to figure out not how to suppress your emotions. We want to figure out how to make sure that when you feel emotions, you're able to feel them and channel them in a way that doesn't end up ruining your relationship. Tell me in the chat if you've ever self-sabotaged because of the fact that you were overthinking. Here's the thing. When you're overthinking, you're not thinking about how you're presenting yourself. You're not thinking about what you want that guy to think of you in the relationship. You're not thinking about the energy you want to embody in this relationship. I'm not saying you can't feel things, but what we don't want is for you to act on the fact that you're overthinking and then be wrong about your accusation, be wrong about the feeling that you had, and then all of a sudden you're trying to backtrack on the way that you self-sabotage. So for example, when you accuse him of cheating and then you show up at his place, for example, and you say, hey, you haven't messaged me back for the past couple of hours, and I know you're up here doing something crazy, right? You're thinking in your mind, I'm acting on this based on how I feel in the moment, and it feels very true to me. It feels like reality to me. But then when you show up at his house, or you send him all those spam calls or all those spam messages, and then you realize that he actually wasn't cheating on you, he was actually just at work in a work meeting, now you look very foolish. Now you look very silly. But the problem with that is, at that point, you're going to start trying to recover from that mistake of self-sabotage. And this is why I really don't want this for you. And this is why it relates directly to your relationships. Because once you self-sabotage, you're going to have a desire to try to fix the fact that you self-sabotage by giving him more of you, by giving him more access, by doing something for him. You want to essentially make it up to him because you self-sabotaged and you accused him of something that isn't necessarily true. But this is a problem now. Now that you're in a place of thinking, I need to do something for him in order to kind of backtrack here or in order to reset here because I was wrong, now you start getting into a mode and a mindset where you're thinking, okay, I need to do more things for him. I need to impress him. I need to show him something. I need to spread my legs open for him. I need to let him jackrabbit himself inside of me because the ways that I self-sabotaged earlier. And I do not want you as a woman in prove-it mode. The moment you become of a mind state that you're in prove-it mode is the moment your relationship with that guy ends. Because as you start thinking, I need to prove something to him, you're going to start forgetting all the strategies and things you're supposed to be doing in terms of evaluating him in the relationship that you're in and analyzing his behavior and the way that he talks, speaks to you, and treats you to determine if he deserves to be with you, not the other way around. Once you start thinking about how you can do more for him to prove something to him, you will immediately turn into a pick-me-sha and everything we've worked for will go down the drain. Let's imagine here we have a scenario in which there are two ways that you can get to work here. There's a main road that everyone takes, lots of lanes, really easy to get there. It's a very straightforward drive. And then you have a side street going on here. See, here's the thing about triggers. See, if you understand, let's say for the sake of example in this little bit of an analogy, that on this main road, at a certain point, there are a whole bunch of potholes, right? On this main road here. And if you take this main road the entire way, at some point you're going to encounter a whole bunch of potholes that'll give you a flat tire and will ruin your rims because of how bad the road is at this point here. What you're going to do eventually is you're going to realize it doesn't make sense for me to keep driving my car down this main road that I know at a certain point is going to have potholes every time I go on my way to work. I got to get there somehow. So what you're going to do is eventually you're going to realize the best way for me to get to work safely without having to worry about my rims or my tires is by taking this side street on my way to work instead of taking the main road the entire way. That way I can avoid this area over here that has a whole bunch of potholes. Okay, so this is a very important analogy because I want the same thing to happen with you in your relationships whenever you overthink. What I want you to start doing is start being honest with yourself. This is going to take some self-awareness and some thinking back to your own life. Start thinking about the experiences you've had with men, whether it be exes or guys that you've been talking to. Start thinking of the things that they said or did that triggered you to have the craziest response. Either triggered you to pull up, either triggered you to spam call him, spam text him, start acting crazy, start doing crazy things, bleach his clothes, burn his clothes, knock on his door, break his window, anything that you've done in your past history that have been absolutely insane where you look back on it and you think to yourself, oh boy, I was way out of my mind when I did that. Any of those actions, I want you to think back to those and ask yourself, what did he do or say at that time that made me go crazy? Okay? The reason I want you to ask that question and answer it for yourself is because those are your exact triggers that we want to be aware of for the future of your relationships and with the new guys that you're going to start dating or start talking to. Because when you're aware of those as triggers and you accept those as being your true triggers, now we can start working to understand how to take side streets to still get to your destination of being in a happy, healthy relationship, but understanding as soon as this trigger comes, I'm going to create my response with my plan in place of how to redirect my energy so that I don't respond the same way that I responded before. Because what we want to do is we want to use your past experiences that you've had and even your past traumas to understand how to avoid you responding the same way that you did in the past. Because the reality of it is you can't control how men treat you or what they do or don't do with you. So sometimes you're going to meet a great guy, sometimes you're going to meet a trash guy, and they're going to trigger you in very similar ways that other previous men have triggered you. It's not about trying to make sure that each man that you date is never going to trigger you. It's about understanding what your triggers are, the same way you understand that these potholes exist whether you like it or not. And you got to get to work one way or another, whether you like it or not. So we want to figure out how do we get to work in a way that doesn't have you going through this road and encountering a whole bunch of potholes. So it's the same thing for you. We want to figure out how you get to the destination of a good relationship, despite the fact that some guys, both good and bad guys, will do things to trigger you in ways that will get you to respond out of pocket, that will get you to self-sabotage like we talked about in our previous point, or just throw you out of whack in a way that doesn't allow you to present yourself with the queen energy that we want you to present yourself with. Point number 5 is about the response. Now, this is the thing about the response that I want you to start thinking about. And I know some of you aren't going to like this, especially those of you who are anxiously attached people. See, whenever you're dealing with a guy, and he's causing you to overthink in the way that he's acting towards you or the things that he's doing with you. Let's say in the same example that he's not messaging you back for a whole 2 hours and you're confused what he could be doing at this time. You're confused where he could be at this time. You're confused who he could be with at this time. There's an innate desire, especially if you're an anxiously attached person, to, when you're overthinking, to surround yourself with people, whether it be girlfriends, family, right? Whoever it may be, in some of your cases, guy friends, and whatever it may be, you want to surround yourself with someone that can help make it easier for you to stop overthinking, right? Someone or something, right? Just so you make this process easier. But here's the thing. Every time you purposely try to bombard yourself with being around people anytime you feel yourself overthinking, what you're doing is 2 things that I actually don't want you to do. The number one thing you're doing is you're basing the way that you respond to situations and the way you control your response externally on other people and whether or not they're there for you. The reason that this is a problem is because what will happen eventually is you'll get to a place where the only way you can control your emotions is by having someone else help to pacify you and help to baby you in order to control your emotions. But this is a problem because all of these different people in your life, they have their own lives. They have their own problems. They have their own situations. So what happens when you need any one of these people that you like to bring close to you whenever you're overthinking, and they have their own situation to deal with, where they can be there for you and help to stop you from spiraling? Now we have a situation where you're out of control and you're out of whack when you try to gain control back by having one of these external people come into your life and they can't be there. Now you're really going to lose control. Now you're really going to spiral. Okay? And I don't want that for you. The other thing that can happen, you take the guy you're dating here and you actually use him as the person you come to whenever you're spiraling. But the problem, once again, is what if you're spiraling because of that guy? Now it makes it very difficult to be able to understand how to go about this situation when the person that you're always relying on externally to help you anytime you're spiraling is the reason you're spiraling. So now we have a bit of a conundrum on your hand. The way that you prevent all of this from happening is by making sure that anytime you're thinking about how to respond to a spiral, respond to a situation, what you want to do is you want to stop relying on others, okay? You don't want to bring anyone else close to you while you're spiraling. We want to develop a strategy for you and a situation where you understand how to deal with your spiral internally, right? First, it's by identifying your trigger, but it's also about allowing yourself to think, okay? And regulate, like Chris just said, right? To self-regulate. Regulate your own emotions. This is the other problem whenever you have all of these other people around you. See, you might think they're all helping me and preventing me from overthinking by giving me advice, by calming me down, by telling me to breathe, all that regular stuff, okay? But the problem is they will all be bringing their own personal ideas and thought bubbles, right? Here, towards you, right? They have their own opinions about things. They have their own ways of going about things. They have their own traumas, their own experiences. The thing about it is, now, when you're overthinking already, someone that already overthinks, you're gonna be in a position where now you're bombarded with even more ideas, even more thoughts, even more ways of responding, even more ways of going about it. And it becomes very confusing because all of these people might have contradictory things that they say to do. So for example, when that guy doesn't message you back for 2 hours, you might think to yourself, is he cheating? Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should do something. Maybe I should show up at his place. Maybe I should ignore him forever. Maybe I should. And all of these different ideas will be brought to you by different people because they have their own individual way about going about things. But the problem is, for someone who's already an overthinker, they're going to bring to you ideas that you may not have even thought of in the first place, which is bad because now you have ideas in your mind that you weren't even thinking about before. And they also might bring different contradicting ideas that you might say, well, I don't know what to do or what to think anymore. Because one person says it's this, another person says it's that, another person says respond like this, another person says respond like that, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. And now you're in a situation where you're an already overthinker, but now you've actually made the situation worse because all of these other thoughts you've brought into your vicinity and brought into your orb, your aura, and now you're really not sure how to go about a situation. We need to isolate you. I know it sounds bad. We need to isolate you and allow you to regulate your emotion by yourself, to think through the emotion by yourself, to think through the logic as well by yourself. And feel what you're feeling. It's not about suppressing the emotion, but feel what you're feeling void of everyone else's opinion. It's already hard enough to go through the emotion, feel it, and figure out how you're going to act on it when you just have to worry about yourself, what you think, and what you want. It's way harder when you have to consider what 10 different people have said to you, and what 10 different people's opinions are on your situation, and what 10 different people tell you to do in this particular scenario, right? It becomes very, very confusing. I want your life to be made simple, especially as it relates to your emotions. The more confusing things are, the more paralyzed you will be, and I'm talking about paralyzation emotionally, and the less likely you'll be to take any action because you just feel like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna do nothing. The problem with that, though, is that is a very easy way to get manipulated and controlled by people. When you're so paralyzed by your emotions, you don't know what to feel. You're just looking for someone else to tell you how to feel. You want to figure out how you can essentially use and regulate your emotions in a way that helps you work with what is going on, work with how you're feeling, work with what you're thinking, and work with how your mind works so that we can get you to the proper destination. So what does that mean here, and what does that look like here? Similar to having a river that is flowing down in a particular direction. You want to understand that you're never going to be able to stop that river from flowing. It's just not possible. You're not going to be able to control the fact that that river is flowing downstream. Okay? Gravity works the way that gravity works, and you're not going to be able to control that. What you want to do instead is you want to figure out, how can I possibly, right, set a dam up in this river here, right, in my emotions, that instead of, me trying to say I won't feel things, I won't think things, I won't have things happen to me or affect me, you figure out how this dam can help to redirect the flow of your energy, the flow of your thoughts, the flow of the way that you're feeling in order to get you to a better destination, okay? So what does that mean and what does that look like? We've got to figure out, where can you channel your energy that will best serve you to being able to respond in the way that we want you to respond, right? Because we don't want your response to be consistent of, self-sabotaging. We don't want your response to come in a way where you make the situation worse. But we also don't want you to suppress your feelings. We also don't want you to just not feel things at all. We want to figure out, how do we let you feel things in a way that allows you to express yourself but doesn't self-sabotage you in your situation? So you have to ask yourself, what are some of the things that get your mind focused on whatever it is you're doing, that you tend to not be so involved in your own life or your own thoughts or your own head? And for some of you, you're going to realize you don't really have this yet. You don't really have that thing yet that will allow you to redirect the flow of your energy, right? And this is the thing that you want to understand, right? If you don't have that yet, you have to do some experimenting and exploring in order to figure out what that is for you. Because what can't happen, listen to me, what can happen is that you end up in a situation where you don't have anything to redirect your energy into. That anytime a guy is upsetting you, anytime you begin to overthink in your mind about this relationship or about what's going on, all you can do is sit there and wallow in your misery. Please, I don't want the only thing for you to turn to is to watch his stories, is to watch what he's doing, is to overthink more, is to look for more clues. This is not good. This will only send you deeper and deeper and deeper down your spiral, to the point where you can't control it, you can't pull yourself out of it, and all you do is self-sabotage. We need to help you, help yourself, help this situation by figuring out how you can redirect energy into things that take some focus from you, that take some attention from you. So what does that not look like? That doesn't look like watching a movie on Netflix, okay? That's not gonna take your focus and attention and redirect it. That doesn't look like sitting in bed scrolling through TikTok. That's not gonna take your focus and attention away, okay? That doesn't look like scrolling through Instagram or watching WhatsApp story, whatever, that doesn't look like that. So for example, writing, if you enjoy writing, that's an example of something. You can't be half present in what's going on about the situation and also be present with your writing. That can be something like cooking. You can't be present in what's going on over here if you're not focused on what it is you're cooking or what it is you're putting together, right? Painting. You can't be focused on other things if you're not focused on, if you're focusing on the painting, right? Or whatever it is you're drawing or whatever it is you're creating. All of these things are good places to redirect energy. Now remember, it's not about suppressing the emotion. It's not about not feeling the emotion, because the truth of the matter is, no matter what it is you're doing, if you're an overthinker, you're going to casually think about the thing that you're overthinking about while you're doing other activities. It's just a natural occurrence, especially for you as an overthinker. We're not trying to get you in a situation where you don't think, where you don't have thoughts, where you don't have feelings. We're trying to get you into a situation where your thoughts and your feelings become so much more manageable because you understand how to flow them and redirect them in the right place, right? And you understand how to channel energy. It's not about taking it away. The energy is not going to disappear. It's about understanding how to channel it, because what we want is, we want to make the emotion and the feelings that you get and the thoughts that you get whenever you overthink, we want them to become so much more manageable. Number 7 is to act on facts. Now, the reason I drew this like this, even though it's a bad drawing, what I want you to think about when you're thinking about this drawing is, I want you to think about, a ventriloquist dummy, right? Yeah, ventriloquist dummy, right? Or just a string doll, right? Where you can control the doll by, your fingers at the top here. What I want for you, and I want you to visualize, the reason I'm drawing it like this, is I want you to stop allowing feelings to be the thing that gets you to take action. I want you to put yourself in a position where the only time you take action is when there are facts that are existing in reality that mean you should take action. So what do I mean by that? For example, right, the guy doesn't message you back for 2 hours and you're thinking to yourself, maybe he's cheating on me. Maybe he's going behind my back and he's sleeping with another girl or on a date with another girl. Rather than acting on the feeling and saying, I want to crash out, I'm going to show up at his house, I'm going to spam call him because I feel like he's cheating on me. Rather, I want you to say, he hasn't texted me back for 2 hours, right? I can ask him where he's been or what he's doing the next time I speak to him, and I will allow him to answer me with whatever answer he gives me, and I will accept that if I have no other evidence to prove that that's not what he was doing. See, part of acting on facts, and this is the really painful part of overthinking and acting on facts, is that you have to let go of the idea you can control people and get some sort of answer that you're looking for. Because the reality of it is, just because a guy doesn't message you back for 2 hours, it doesn't necessarily mean he's he's cheating on you. And if he tells you he was just at a work meeting and you have no other evidence to show that he wasn't at a work meeting, you have to accept that I guess he was at the work meeting. Now, here's the thing about acting on facts. If you ever get to a point where you're saying, Tomisin, I'm constantly overthinking with this guy because every time we go on dates, every time we're away from each other, he makes me feel anxious. He doesn't message me. He's gone for hours. He's gone for days sometimes. He doesn't seem to want to communicate. He just makes me super anxious because of the way he acts all the time. What am I supposed to do? Only act on the things that are factual and not feel like I'm having a lot of anxiety around him? In that case, then you act on the fact that he's not the type of guy that you're looking for. That's not what overthinking or dealing with overthinking is about. Dealing with overthinking is about understanding the difference between, hey, I'm overthinking because something is actually wrong or I need to leave this relationship, versus I'm overthinking just because of my trauma, just because of my experiences, just because of my history.